Some of you have little kids. Some of you have older kids. Some of you, your kids are grown, and this might apply to your grandkids, which is where it applied to me when I met my next guest. And I say my next guest, but it's the M.A.P.S event. So it is our next guest because you are part of this. Our next guest is none other than Dale Troy. And Dale is an amazing expert in what it takes for your child to thrive through that transition into college and beyond. So Dale, please join me. I know you are here, so you have the power to unmute and turn on your camera.
Okay, here I am.
Ta-da!
How are you?
I am well. It is such a great energy to have you here and to be in this magical world that we can do this.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So I need to share my screen and I want you to tell me if you don't see the slides because I don't want that to happen to me. Okay.
Feedback. We need more feedback. And that is one of the things that's often missing when we're talking about our kids. So yes, I can see the presentation showing up. And when you go into presentation mode,
there we go. Come on.
It's thinking about it. There we go. Okay.
All right. So here I am. Oops.
But there we go. That it worked. Oh. All right. I will leave you to get the party started. Is it working for you?
There we go. Okay.
There we go. I love the fact that you have it's not too late on there.
Yeah. So I'm happy to be here. My topic is the 5 life skills that students need to succeed in college. And yes, it's not too late, no matter what age your child is, even if they're already in college, there are these life skills that will make a huge difference. So it doesn't matter where you are in the process of education. And just a little bit about me. My name is Dale Troy, as you know. I am a college success coach, also a certified health coach. I went to Yale and Yale Law School, and I have 3 daughters who graduated from Yale. So I know what it's like to be in a stressful environment in college. And I think that any student can be successful in college if they have the right life skills. And that's why we're talking about life skills. And I care about it because I see the increasing rates of anxiety, depression, stress, unfortunately, even suicide, as Jackie knows, on college campuses. And I want to help prevent that. And I think one of the ways to do that is to make sure every child has these life skills. So as I said, that's the reason I'm talking about life skills. And what's happening on college campuses right now is pretty dramatic. The statistics show that 30% of kids who start freshman year don't even make it to sophomore year. And that's tragic in my mind. And in addition, depending on what statistic you find online, there's a wide range, but there have been a lot of studies about the stress levels, and some say 60% of kids on campus are constantly stressed. Some say up to 80%. So it's really a huge problem. And I've seen that colleges are trying to respond to it, but they're doing things like bringing on therapy dogs or adding more people in their health center, social workers, more things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga. But I honestly think it's never going to be enough. And I say that because the campuses are huge and there's so many kids, they just can't service. They can't even I don't think we can expect them to be able to do enough one-on-one to make enough of a difference. So I believe that we need to prepare as parents. We need to really think about preparing our kids for college. And what I see that's missing and why there's so much anxiety, stress, and depression on campuses is that kids don't have the life skills that they need. And they're kind of almost like thrown onto a campus and kind of expected to be able to do so many things that they've never had to do for themselves before. And that's why, and I'm calling them life skills. You might call them something else, but we're going to talk about what those things are that you can really be working on with your kids so that they won't have that experience when they do go to college. So in my mind, I've put the life skills into 3 categories or 3 buckets. The first is planning well, which kind of means taking control of your schedule, your time, being organized, things like that. Connecting well has to do with creating friendships and mentorships and just feeling comfortable on the campus. And then living well has to do with what are your actual habits on a daily basis when your parents aren't on campus telling you what to do or recommending things to you. So those are the kind of basic categories. And within those categories, I'm going to talk about 5 different skills that I think would make a huge difference. Okay, so in the planning well category, there are 2 life skills that I want to mention. One is goal setting and the other is time management. Goal setting is huge. I want to tell you a brief story. I worked with a student who wanted to be pre-med. He went to college on the pre-med track, and in about the 4th or 5th week of freshman year, his mom called me and said, "There's no way my son's going to make it. His grades are already bad. I don't know what he's doing, but something is not working. And I don't get it because he was an A student in high school." So I investigated, started working with him, and realized that although he had the goal of being pre-med, he had no idea how to achieve the goal. He just didn't have anything in place that was going to help him get there. He didn't know how to study at a college level. He didn't realize that he had to stop socializing at a decent hour so that he could get enough sleep. He was doing no exercise. He was eating very poorly. I mean, it was pretty much a mess. So the reason I want to mention that I bring him up in terms of goal setting, yes, he had a goal. He didn't know how to get there, but because he had a goal, he was willing to do whatever it took to turn things around. He was willing to work with me. He did a fantastic job. He implemented everything I suggested. He did even better than I suggested. And I think it was only because he knew what he wanted, and he believed that if he changed these habits and was more in control of his daily life, that he would be able to achieve that goal. What he ended up doing was actually getting up super early in the morning. He would run to get some exercise in. He would go eat a breakfast at some restaurant that was open super early. And he got his day started on totally different. And then he also realized that he needed to study away from his room so he wouldn't be distracted by the roommates. And all in all, he just did a fantastic job. And in 5 weeks, everything had changed. So goal setting is super important. And then there's time management, which actually, in my mind, is the key to success in college. And why do I even bring up time management? Because when your kids are at home with you in high school or middle school, they don't think about time management. They are presented with a schedule. They don't have to create it themselves. It's pretty basic. There aren't a lot of choices. They go to school, they do their after school activities, they come home, they do their homework, they have dinner, they go to sleep. And it just kind of repeats that way. But in college, it's an open opportunity to do whatever they want because there is no pre-planned schedule. Everyone has to create their own schedule. And parents aren't on the campus to help them. They aren't on the campus to make sure they're even going to class. So if someone isn't good at time management, they can easily become overwhelmed. They can easily start getting behind in their classes. They can easily, decide that making friends was the most important thing, and then all of a sudden their academics are falling by the wayside. I worked with a girl not that long ago who was in her sophomore year. Her mom contacted me because she was doing so poorly academically that she had to keep repeating classes. And her mom didn't, again, she was great in high school, but for some reason, college was not working out well for her. So I quickly realized that she had no time management skills. She wasn't writing anything down. She was just trying to remember things. She didn't know how to prioritize what she was doing. She couldn't figure out how much time anything took. So really what was happening a lot was that she'd stay up super late. She wouldn't be able to get up for class, then she'd get behind, and then she'd feel bad about herself. So it was kind of a cycle of not using her time well, and then missing classes, and then getting more behind. So it was really frustrating for her. But she knew that she wanted to make a change. And once she figured out that keeping a good schedule on a planner was going to make a difference, she totally embraced it. And what made me so happy recently is I spoke to her mom, who said learning to use the planner and scheduling her day and sticking with a schedule was, quote, transformational for her. And not only that, but last semester she got a 3.89 GPA, which was totally unheard of. And I mean, that just made me so happy. I mean, seeing changes in students is like what I live for, really. It's fantastic. So those are the two things in Plan Well. Now, if you can start working with your kids if they're younger on those two concepts, you will really empower them when they go to college. They'll just be so much further ahead of the game than most students. So I encourage you to work on those. And then we're going to move on to the next two. Okay, so in the Connect Well category, I have two life skills that I believe are super important in college. One is developing a support network, and the other is self-advocacy. So you might think, why is developing a support network so important? Well, first of all, we know that all kids want to feel like they fit in. And particularly when they go to college in freshman year, that is their biggest concern. They want to make sure that they have friends, and they easily get homesick. And if they haven't figured out that they have a place on campus, that just adds to that feeling of homesickness. And I mean, I've heard many parents tell me that their kids just want to come home. They just feel so uncomfortable on the campus. So at this point in time, if your child is not already on college, you start to get them to realize that there's kind of a skill to making friends. You have to be outgoing. You have to ask people questions. You have to smile. You have to be friendly, because you really have to make the effort to find those friends when you get to college. It's not as easy as when they were younger. But on the other hand, everybody wants to find friends, so that it really isn't that hard, but it feels hard, and people and all the freshmen are worrying about the same thing. It's it's almost kind of amusing, because they're all worrying about the same thing, and if they would just be open and more, participate more in things, they would easily find friends. But it's not just friends. They also want to feel a part of the whole campus, and the way to do that is to do things like go to professors' office hours, talk to the TAs of the classes, meet the residential assistant in your dorm, walk into their room and have a conversation. Maybe go into the career center, start talking about what you might want to do out in the future. Get to know the tutors, the librarian, the health center. I mean, there's so many different resources, different people who could be mentors, who could just be a friendly face. And you want your child to feel really comfortable, feel like they are supported, that people care about them. And if they don't make those connections, they're not going to be made for them. They really have to make the effort. And I think that's, such a difference from being at home. The network of support, that feeling of being comfortable and supported, just comes naturally when you're living at home with your parents and you're in a community and so forth, but you have to make your own community when you go to college. So, it's something that needs to be talked about before they end up on the college campus. And then self-advocacy, somewhat similar. I have worked with too many students who are struggling and they don't raise their hand. They don't go up, they don't look for help. They don't use those resources that are on campus. I, often have had to actually have a student write to a professor while I'm on a Zoom call with them, just to make sure that they actually do it, because they're embarrassed. They don't want to admit that they don't understand something. It feels very uncomfortable. And I think that in a lot of ways that stems from the fact that when they're living in our homes, they haven't had to do that. Parents often get very involved. They might call a teacher in high school. They probably will arrange to have a tutor for a child who's not doing well in a math class. And your child hasn't ever had to do anything. They just sit there and things come to them. So when they get to college and that isn't happening, they kind of just don't have the initiative. They don't think it's like it's their thing to do. But I will tell you, parents cannot call professors in college. They cannot call their kids professors. They cannot call the tutor and say, my child needs help. The child definitely has to learn to do that. And if you can, when they're younger, if you can start giving them more responsibility for themselves in that way and being more of an advocate for themselves, they're going to be in much better shape. Because if they get to campus and they're afraid to speak up, that's when they're going to tend to fail. And I have had parents hire me just for that purpose, that their child's failing and they realize it's because they're not using the resources. And if a parent tells a child, well, just go see the tutor, probably the child won't do it. But when I talk to a child and I said, well, those resources are there for you. Let's get on let's open up the calendar, find out when there's an appointment available. I want you to make the appointment now, et cetera, they will do it. And that's the difference when you have somebody from the outside helping. So those are, so we're up to 4 life skills, and I have one more. The next slide. Okay, oh, it's the living well. So living well in my mind is all of the daily habits that your child has, and I've talked about 4 different ones. What they're eating, and obviously we want that to be healthy and something that's nourishing for their body, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, and exercising on a regular basis. And the thing is that kids, when they're at home, they haven't had to make these choices so much either. I mean, parents are feeding them usually breakfast and dinner, and they're going to lunch in their cafeteria. So there aren't a lot of choices for food. And potentially they aren't really thinking about water unless they have been an athlete that may, then they might have heard of the importance of drinking water, but it's not something that most people talk a lot about, but it makes a lot of difference. Sleep, they're kind of controlled by the family schedule in general. They're not really choosing so much when they're going to sleep. And exercise, may be part of what they're doing with school, but once they get on the college campus, all of these things are totally up to them. So rather than just assuming that your child knows what to do, it's really a good idea to start talking about these things, making healthy living something that you encourage, something that you model for them, so that when they get to college, they kind of have an idea of what they should be doing and they aren't following the crowd and making poor choices. I actually worked with one girl who came to me because she was having panic attacks, and her mom really didn't know how to help her. And there were so many stresses that she was having, and a lot of it had to do with how she was taking care of herself on a daily basis. I mean, first of all, she was hardly ever eating breakfast. She did no exercise. She didn't have a water bottle that she carried around with her. And her sleep was very poor because she was so stressed out, she couldn't fall asleep. So she got very few hours of sleep. So I had to work on all of those things, and that made a huge difference. And in addition, I taught her how to do some slow, deep breathing so that when she was feeling that panicky sense, she could know how to calm her body down. And that was, I mean, knowing that I was able to help her with the panic attacks was just huge for me, because I used to have panic attacks myself and nobody told me what to do. And it's really a horrible feeling. And, you know, that it just turned around her whole year. So there's such a connection between how you take care of your body and how you feel physically and mentally, whether you can focus, whether you're going to perform well in your classes. You can't ignore those things. So though that's something that you can be working on no matter what age your child is. So here's Ben Franklin, who says, by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. I like to turn that around in a sense and say that when you prepare, you are giving your child just an edge. You are setting them up for success. So I really want, the whole essence of this conversation is really to focus on the idea of preparing your child for college with those life skills that they really absolutely need and they may not have. And you probably haven't even thought about each of these life skills because it just hasn't come about. I mean, you haven't realized that they're so essential, and you haven't really thought about what happens when they go to the college campus and you're not there. So my mission really is to help parents realize that if they could just prepare their kids with these life skills and some other ones that I also work with, that their child is going to be so much more successful. They're not going to be so stressed. They're going to know how to handle themselves. They're going to just feel more in control and not so overwhelmed by this huge transition from living at home to living on a college campus. So again, just to refresh, these are the 5 skills that I've talked about: goal setting, time management, having a support network, or creating your own, self-advocacy, and healthy habits. And I believe if we can get everyone to learn those, there's going to be a lot more success on a college campus and more graduations. And that's all I have. So I'm open to any questions.
Dale, that was just amazing. You managed to put a lot into this very wonderfully designed timeline. Those 5 skills, again, let's just touch on them. And then I received a private chat that I popped in there, so I'll bring it to you in just a second. The first one was about goal setting. And at what age is it a good age to start goal setting? This concept of that aspect of planning.
Yeah, I would say, let me think. I think 9th grade might be a good time, because at that point in time, they are thinking about the future. They're realizing that what they have to figure out what their path is going to be. Is it going to be college, or is it going to be something else? So I would say 9th grade would be, and they're mature enough at that point in time.
Cool. All right. So goal setting and time management were, those were just like, oh yeah, the real basic things that we assume that they absorb through their skin. And the comment was, you mean they don't get these in school?
No, they don't. Yeah. I mean, I actually think that this kind of a discussion and these life skills should be taught in high school. I think there's something missing. I think there's like a gap. we're expecting kids to go from high school to college with not enough preparation.
You brought up a really good point. When it comes to a lot of these skills, they were handled by the parents. You know, their social connections were handled by the family, by the any religion, any social gatherings, the neighborhood. You know, they were sort of provided. All of this was provided, and especially about the advocacy piece. Having been the advocate for my kids when they were in middle school and high school, especially, not realizing that it was preventing them from developing that skill for themselves. Yeah, it was a real comeuppance for me, you know, to realize what a handicap that actually proved to be.
Yeah, we think that that's our role, to do everything for our kids, but it's unfortunately, as you said, it's a handicap when they get older and they're expected to do it and they haven't ever practiced it.
Well, thank you very, very much, Dale, for bringing all of your expertise, for taking your time and showing up on the Mental Wellness and Positivity event, because this is certainly a big part in helping kids maintain some optimism about what's possible for them in a time when schools are open, schools are closed. You know, they're studying at school, they're studying at home. To give them these skills now will help them, I think, get through the challenges they've got in high school that we didn't have and that my kids didn't have in high school.
That's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.